riser, shirts and trousers.
Holidays nale adu namma GT Holidays da, South India's #1 travel brand.
Deepavali collection Kodi, Magachiyum Kodi. The Chennai Silks. Let the celebrations begin.
And the moment I bring my gun out, I am to point at him. And the nozzle of my gun grazed his nose. I felt I'm going to get kicked out on the very first day.
Hello, Vikrant Massey. Welcome to Galata Plus.
Hi, sir. Hi. So good to see you.
You know, this is one of those, I think, career-making performances because I think I first noticed you in Death in the Gunge. Yes. That was like a breakout thing for you.
Yes. And you were very, very kind. I read your review twice.
Okay, yes, good. But this is something else altogether. You are part of an ensemble. This is entirely your movie. How does it feel to finally carry a movie on your shoulders and a spectacular movie at that?
Thank you. I don't know actually, you're kind, you're using such fabulous adjectives every actor sort of dreams of. I don't know. I'm just taking it as it comes. I haven't seen it as such yet, in the sense that I have single-handedly sort of, handled the film. It's still an ensemble. Every you've seen the film and you know all the parts are equally important. But let's see, I'm just waiting for the film to actually come out. It's also very important for me to know what the audiences think about it.
Right. But when I say I don't mean that, see, every film it takes a village to make a film. So that's not what I mean at all. What I mean is you're in practically every scene, and that's like you're the protagonist, and right there you're the centerpiece of this whole thing, The film, if you had not delivered the performance that you delivered, the film would just not have worked. And that's what I mean. So what did that feel like? A, the responsibility of that, and B, like going through the daily motions of a film that requires you in practically every scene and requires so much of preparation. That's what I kind of meant. So
I definitely recognized the responsibility. So Vinod sir called me, he asked me to read the book. And when I read the book, I instantly recognized that there is tremendous potential in the script. But I think I am someone I've always felt like this, or I keep reminding myself the same thing, that I think I perform better under pressure.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And I think my relation with sport, because I've played a lot of sport, has a lot to do with this. That's how it is. And I think a lot of what you see in the film is also author-backed. It is author-backed, and you have a lot of responsibility. But I think a lot of it was taken care of because we had ample time to prep. And this was the first time in my entire career that I was given 3 months to prep before the shoot. For the first time in my life, Vinod sir actually sort of welcomed me in the entire process of bringing things together. I was auditioning with other actors. I was given the opportunity to suggest what I think about certain scenes or what could be done. And I realize that it kind of suits me. I generally rehearse a lot, and a lot of my co-actors don't like me because of it. I insist on at least a week's workshop, depending on what everyone's schedule is like. A week or 10 days, 15 days. But here I got ample time. So I think that is what probably brought out the best in me. But most of it all is because of Vinod Chopra sir.
Right.
He gave this film 4 years of his life. He knew this film better than anyone.
Right.
And as most of us know, he's a true blue filmmaker. I think that is the only thing he can do, and he says this himself. He lives films.
Yeah.
He cannot do anything else but make films. So I think both of us collaborated really, really well, and I think his work style really suited me. And yes, maybe at the cost of sounding pompous, I think I was waiting for an opportunity like this to come out and probably do something that I feel equally strong for.
Nice. Yeah. Are you good at looking at the screen, like even when you're dubbing or whatever it is, and saying, yes, I nailed this shot. No, I'm like, this I could have done better. Are you good at that kind of analysis?
Mostly. But then I also recognize that after watching your own stuff more than a couple of times, you tend to lose objectivity because you've worked on it,
Right.
firstly. And only when things come together, like for example, your first lineup, it takes a couple of months after shoot. So most of the things you're looking in retrospect. And you do feel कि okay, fine, you know, ये मैंने अच्छा किया है या फिर इसको ऐसे कर सकते थे. But I love dubbing. So I sometimes insist on dubbing, but you know how modern films are made, you know, you really want to get the ambience and the
Yeah.
sync sound. I think the moment you look at your own performance in retrospect, there are a lot of corrections because you've grown as a person. You've probably detached yourself, and then the moment you watch it again on the big screen is when you feel कि अच्छा ये ऐसे कर सकते थे, वैसे कर सकते थे. And dubbing में उसको आप better कर सकते हैं.
You mean with dubbing you can kind of
Enhance your
the performance.
Enhance the performance, of
Right,
course.
right. Generally, there are two kinds of parts for any actor, right? One is a sort of generic part, and the other one is a specific part. Now, when I say generic part, I mean something like with no, I don't mean this in a bad way at all, something like Chapak, where you're a boyfriend, a sensitive person, where at least apparently to the viewer, it looks like he's done a very good job, but it looks like it did not need too much of yourself.
Yeah.
Versus a 12th fail, where your work is very obvious, that there's a lot of stuff that's gone in.
It's far more detailed.
It's very detailed. Now, is this true, or does every kind of performance require some kind of work? And it's just that the nature of the role makes it seem as if it's a more casual and this is more serious.
I completely agree with you. Because a lot of it also depends on how you want to treat the entire film, where you stand in context with the entire film. Considering the example you spoke of, Chapak, it was Lakshmi's film, it was Deepika's film. Your entire focus is there. So not that you really don't focus on your secondary actors, but you really probably don't detail it so much. And that's how you treat a particular film. It totally depends on how you want to treat a film or a character. In a case like 12th Fail, this is an author-backed character. And you are leading the narrative from the front. So you do have enough space to probably flesh it out or detail it out. The output remains the same. But one also has to recognize what part of the puzzle you are in a film.
Right.
And that is very important. And I tend to look at a film holistically rather than just go out there and say, you know, I'm going to kill it, ya mujhe dekho, ya, you know, this is what I have to do.
Right.
I don't see it that way. It depends on what the tonality of the film is or how the director wants to treat the film.
Are you saying that sometimes you have to, when you realize that you're the secondary part, like for instance in Chapak, you have to make sure that you don't do too much to overshadow the central part? Is that what you're trying to say?
Or probably don't do something that is actually not needed.
Needed, okay.
You have to identify what is needed for the film. And you have to make do with it. You have to make peace with it.
Right.
And I've done that all my life. I've played secondary parts or peripheral parts as well at the beginning of my film career. And I know, I kind of gauge and I understand, and also because I would want to believe that I am a director's actor. So I would rather give what the director wants rather than what I want to do, because it's futile.
Right.
It by the end of it, it is the director who takes the call. He or she knows what they want out of the film, and you have to give them what they want.
So you just spoke about your career. Lutera was in 2013.
Yeah.
That was your first feature.
Yeah.
And it's 2023.
10 years.
So 10 years has happened.
Yeah.
What was the very, very first shot that you gave?
The very first shot that I gave, I remember very clearly. For Lutera, we were in Film City, Reliance Media Works. We were shooting there. It was the bedroom sequence when Ranveer's character comes and wakes me up, and I point the gun at him. And that was my first day. I was so nervous. I was so intimidated by Vikrant Massey. Maybe because I was completely overwhelmed with the fact that, okay, here I am. I've cracked my first film audition, and this is my first film with someone I want to work with or really, really wanted to work with. And he has that aura about him. You've met him. Highly intellectual, doesn't speak much. And with Ranveer Singh and Sonakshi Sinha, it's a big budget film. And the moment I bring my gun out, I am to point at him, and the nozzle of my gun grazed his nose. I felt I'm going to get kicked out on the very first day, because here is a budding actor who is on his way to superstardom, and you've probably hurt him in a way that could take days or weeks to recover. But then thankfully that didn't happen. Luckily that didn't happen. And yeah, these 10 years have passed by, and it's taken me 10 years to get an interview with Baradwaj Rangan. I am worth it, worth it.
No, but these 10 years have passed by. How do you look back at it? Do you feel that, of course, everybody's journey is their own, right? Yeah. Do you feel that sometimes there are things that you could have done better, you should have gotten here sooner, something like that? I know a lot of it is not under your control, but are there some strategic moves that you feel you could have done to kind of do things
I think it's been exactly the way I would have wanted it.
Okay.
And I always wanted it this way. I know where I come from. I would also want to believe that I have this certain good quality of not being delusional. I know my reality. Sooner to bilkul nahi, because anyway most of the things are so transient. I want to make it worthwhile. I've always wanted to make it worthwhile. By what I mean when I say this is, I started off playing smaller parts. You know, my priority then was to justify the parts that I've got and also grab the makers and the audience's attention. I'll be very honest with you about it. Everyone does that.
Right.
You know, even if you've been given 2 scenes or 3 scenes, yes, knowing what part of the puzzle you are, you still want people to take notice of what you are capable of.
Right.
But this is exactly how I wanted it to be, because I come from TV. It's a completely different world altogether. And I've always believed in what I have, my own skill sets. I'm sorry, I'm sounding a little pompous, but I definitely always aspired to have a certain archival value. And that takes time. I don't believe in overnight successes. I definitely don't. And I'm glad I didn't have that. So definitely not sooner. I've always wanted to take the route that I've taken, and I'm pretty confident of the pace that I'm walking, of the direction that I'm walking in. And yeah, so this is how it is.
So overnight success has this way of making you a star. So you know that you have arrived. Whereas the route that you have taken is a slightly more uncertain one where you don't know when it's going to happen.
But it will definitely happen.
But you have that confidence.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that confidence comes from?
My own self-belief. I know what I possess.
I have this, and I know it's going to happen. Yeah. Is it just like a positive mindset?
It is a positive mindset, and also at the same time, I think it is what the people you're working with who tell you that.
Right.
You know, your makers and your writers especially, and producers who are investing on you. And the audiences most importantly.
Right.
I'm not really active on social media, but I definitely do keep a tab of what people are saying. And I believe in constructive criticism also at the same time. I know I've done a lot of shit work, and I take that in my stride. I also am someone who very naturally or subconsciously tries to cut the superfluous. So I know what I possess. I know what I have.
Right.
But the kind of work that I want to do, I'm like, honestly, if you ask me, I am still auditioning day to day. I might not be in an audition room, but a 12th fail is an audition for me in so many ways. I want to work with bigger makers as well. I want to do bigger films. When I say bigger, I mean in terms of investment, in terms of that there are certain makers I want to work with, but I also know they would not work with me unless and until I deliver box office consistently. And I will only deliver box office if I am consistent with my performances. So there is a clear structure which is out there, which I think I have recognized. I might be wrong, but I think that is what suits me. And I've sort of customized it my way, and I'm sticking to that part.
That's very nice. Did you have a plan B in case, let's say, 5 years happen and something hadn't happened according to your self-belief?
I never thought otherwise.
This was always what you wanted.
Always what I
This is always the only thing you went after.
Always the only thing I went after. Always wanted to be an actor. Started off with TV. Like, it is a very, very daunting place, television. I did 10 years of television. I did a fair good amount of work on television. And then films happened. Never thought कि plan B क्या होना चाहिए. Plan B तो मतलब ठीक है अगर होता तो it's definitely crossed my mind that okay, if films don't work out the way I want them to, I would definitely go back and make a lot of money on television, which I already was. But it was a very conscious decision for me to sort of leave it because one of the main reasons, two main reasons why I quit television was, the first was the regressive content on television. I really did not agree to most of the things they asked me to do. And I felt underutilized because of that. And and I knew that I always had a 10-year plan. So when I always had a 10-year plan, and I mean it, I swear I had a 10-year plan. I told myself when I started off with Lutera, I told myself, okay, 10 saal denge, probably take a nice holiday, sit back, reflect on the 10 years that have gone by and sort of reevaluate, recalibrate. And 10 years are here. So I think after 12th fail, I'm going to sit back and recalibrate.
But what are the odds that you gave yourself 10 years and in your 10th year, you're just getting the biggest movie of your life?
I think manifestation is true.
It's true?
It's true. I think it does happen. I believe in the power of manifestation. But also I think consistency is key. Like even with my smaller parts, for example, films like Lipstick Under My Burqa, I knew where I stood. It was not my film, but my character was also equally important in the entire narrative. So what was important for me was to justify the part that I've been hired for and also make sure that it aids me a step closer towards my goal.
Right.
So kind of it's a juggling act, you know. There's so many things that you're handling at one time.
I'm going to ask you about how you approach your role in 12th Fail. But before that, you tell me, do you have any superstitions or peculiarities or things that you want to do before as an actor, like a process, you know, because different people have different things.
I think I have this crazy superstition that I have to sort of mark my script very neatly. Not too much scribbling. I have 2-3 copies. One is a rough copy, one is a prep copy, one is an on-set copy. Like it's so weird that if I haven't marked out my lines the way I want them to, the lines would never come inside my system.
Like, what do you mean by that? You mean which word gets an emphasis, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Or like highlighted with a highlighter. Like it should look presentable as well at the same time with those sticky notes on it, you know, mark it out. And once the scene is over, I sort of write a big D on it signifying done. Okay, this is over.
Wow, nice.
I do all. That's my superstition. And there are days when I haven't done that and it feels कि यार ये लाइनें मुझे याद क्यों नहीं हो रही हैं. So I insist कि यार मुझे 10 minute देना. I go back to my trailer and I start marking it out and there the lines are. Every time I am called for a shot, I have to go and take a leak. Like just completely make sure that I'm not distracted by anything. So these are things. You know, even if I've taken a leak 5 minutes ago, I have to go take a leak. And it's not just that you end up standing there or sitting there unnecessarily. It actually happens. So my system responds that way. I think, I don't know, I'm still figuring it out.
Right, because you don't want to get distracted during the set by this feeling of, okay, I need to use the loo or something like that. Yeah. You know how sometimes there are characters that are very far away from you and characters that are close to you. Which one was this?
The closest to me.
The closest?
The closest that I've ever been to any character.
Right.
Shutu was another character that was very close to me. But if you actually sit back and probably look at both these characters in retrospect, there is quite a lot of similarity between these two guys.
Why was Shutu close to you?
I was always very shy. Would always think twice before putting my mind out. Maybe because I was sort of suppressed at a very young age and I started keeping things within. And I think I still retain traits of that. I have massive social anxiety. I'm very awkward at social gatherings. I have a very small ecosystem of my own. I'm very happy with that. But I also sometimes feel that I have a split personality. The moment you put me in front of the camera, I can do things that surprise me myself at times. But I think that's how it is. But this one has been the closest to me I've ever played. I'm sure Vinod sir, you've spoke to Vinod sir, he must have said the same thing, that This character, yes, he is an orthobat character based on someone who's alive, who's there, who is actually an example for so many people. But this one actually represents a lot of us. A lot of Vinod sir is in this character. A lot of me is in this character. A lot of what the real Manoj Kumar Sharma is. A lot of what this boy is. So I think most lower middle class people have faced similar obstacles in life, similar treatment from society, and so on.
When Vinod came to you with this role and you started your prep, what did you feel was the key to this character? See, because why I'm asking this is, we all know what you look like. You have the same face, the same smile. There's only so much of variations you can give within that, right? You've still got to find, but unless you're applying prosthetics or something like that,
Yeah.
you still have to find variations within what your physicality is.
Yeah.
What did you feel was the key to Manoj?
How I saw it was to be true to the part. I mean, looking a certain way will be taken care of. There is an entire team hired for that, and the director is going to sort of get that out of them. And a director like Vidhu Vinod Chopra is definitely going to get that out of them, or anybody for that matter of fact. The idea was to be as true as I can to the part. Now, I don't even know how to put it when I say true. I wanted to represent that suppressed angst, That was my priority. I always felt after reading and rereading that if I am able to sort of represent the average common man the right way,
Right.
there is actually no right way, but the way I understand, I think I will have done my job. The costumes will look after them, the makeup will look after their job. But my idea was to play this part with utmost honesty and sincerity.
Right.
And most of it we found while prepping, but a lot of it you find while you are in the process, while you're filming, while you're there. There are so many things you think you will do on set, but you end up doing things which are completely the opposite. So it's an amalgamation of a lot of things coming together. But my key was to go out there and represent that angst, because I have a lot of it within me. The Vikrant angst that I have, and I have my own experiences. And it seems God sent, this film, for me. In so many ways, it seems God sent that, and I very proudly say that this character is very, very, very close to me.
Right.
I have taken my own stand. I've chosen my own path that we spoke about. There are days when you really doubt yourself. There are days when you're very, very unsure. There are days when you feel like taking that bait and doing the conventional things because there are certain perks associated with that too. But then I held my own. This guy holds his own. And I kind of, as I said, brought a lot of what Vinod sir shared his life with me, of my own life, and the author-backed character that was written for me. So it's an amalgamation of all
Of
these
everything.
things.
I'm sure that you're going to say there were many scenes that were tough to perform, but can you pick one and take us through how you got it, just to kind of get an idea of how you handle the process?
Every film has a very different process. There's no one fixed method per se.
Let's talk about.
But for this one particular film, and you're right, there are a lot of scenes which really sort of churned me inside out. The result scene was what actually I actually cried. There was no bliss. What actually happened was, there is one line in the film, you must have seen that. सब लोग सर एडमंड हिलरी के बारे में जानते हैं, लेकिन कोई भी शेरपा आंगरी
नंगे पैर,
जानता। और मैं भी यहाँ तक आया हूँ बिना ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर के, वो भी नंगे पैर। Every time I would read that line, and as I speak to you or mouth it to you, I feel a certain sense of shiver within me, because I equate that with my own life. And while we were filming that scene, Vinod sir and the entire unit was so kind. He called for a cut so politely. I continued crying even 5 to 7 minutes after the cut. That is what it kind of meant to me. It was almost like retribution in so many ways. And he shot the film in sequence. Now that is another thing that really, really helped. Vinod sir has shot nearly 80% of the film in sequence. So by the time we were shooting that, I had actually gone through the entire grind.
Right. And that's a privilege because you usually never get that.
Never get that.
Yeah.
Some days you're on set on the third day and you're shooting the climax. I mean,
Yeah.
This was hand in glove. This was tailor made for me, and that's why I say Vinod sir's working style, his process, completely suited mine. So when we were shooting that scene, I actually just dropped down because I was so exhausted by the time we reached there.
Right.
That was the toughest scene for me.
Right. Usually when the prospect of failure is also there in your mind, I'm not sure how you motivate yourself to give everything. Do you just block out that failure aspect of it?
Maybe. Now that I'm talking about it, maybe. But it just does not come naturally to me. I am someone who completely blinkers myself down automatically. And it's not just about acting. I think it's with most things that I do. So when I read a book, I hate it when I get a call or when I have to do something other than that at that point in time. So that's my nature. But with audition spaces, it's a very tricky space. And the worst thing is that most people who are conducting your auditions are aspiring actors themselves.
Oh.
Yeah. Most casting assistants, most casting directors are either failed actors who are partly bitter, or their assistants are aspiring actors themselves. So it is a very tricky space. And I kind of recognize that very early. They are directing you, and you're not sure that, is this exactly the way the director would want to direct me? So at a much later stage in my life, after I'd done a couple of films like Half Girlfriend or even Lutera, I would insist, can I have the director when I audition and you don't guide me, because I know somewhere down the line you are praying to take the part that I am auditioning for. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the absolute truth. So it does get tricky, but the idea is to just go out there and at least get noticed.
Right.
You are nowhere close to what the actual part would be finally while you're giving the audition, because there are so many things that come together, the makeup and the costumes and the other actor in front of you, and as we all know, that acting is a give and take. You give what you receive. You try landing somewhere close, but you have to give it your all, because it is a tricky space. You're looking into the camera and acting. There is someone who's actually least interested in what you do. You're probably the 50th person who's there, who's auditioning for the day. He might be having a headache, he or she. But then the idea is to sort of, imagine certain things in your own head and try landing as close as you should.
Right. You mentioned even when you're reading, you hate to be disturbed. What are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I'm reading this really interesting book called The Future of Geography by Tim Marshall.
Okay.
I don't watch a lot of things. It's kind of strange. I think I tend to, especially when I'm working. So a lot of people come to you and say, ki, aisa karna hai. And I hate that. I tend to get, with the audio-visual medium, I tend to get really, really influenced really quick. So most of my prep also involves a lot of reading. So yeah, I'm currently reading Tim Marshall's The Future of Geography.
You're more of a non-fiction guy?
It depends. Nowadays, more of a non-fiction guy, because you end up reading so many scripts which are fiction. So it's a good
That's
break.
That's a beautiful way to put it, actually. Yeah, because that's also a kind of reading. Yeah.
So it's a good breakaway. It's a good breakaway from fiction, and probably just sort of brush yourself up with some important things that are happening around. The reason I picked up The Future of Geography is after the Chandrayaan landed on the moon. And I said, okay, this is an interesting perspective. I'd read a book by the same author before, Prisoners of Geography.
Right.
That really changed the way I see a lot of things now. And I just picked this up because I was like, okay, let's see what this guy is talking about, because we've actually reached the moon and people are talking about colonizing the moon. Maybe it is true, and now I definitely believe that it's true.
Like, I can imagine a day people on the moon are watching a Vikrant Massey movie.
I might not live up until then, but I'm definitely sure the next 50 years, I think we'll definitely colonize the moon. I think we've really ruined the planet, and I think there's no way back.
Right. Is it better for an actor to have an image or not have an image? Because one way to ensure career longevity is to say, I need a sensitive actor who can play a sensitive type, let's call Vikrant Massey, because that means that you have your career is set, but that also means monotony. You won't be able to do a Mirzapur.
But I did a Mirzapur.
You did, but that I'm saying. So is it better to have an image or not?
I don't know. I really don't. I'm still figuring it out, sir. I mean, most actors do. I don't know what should be. But I know what should be for me.
Right.
What works for me is what I do in front of the camera.
Right.
Now, when you talk about image, there are so many peripherals that come into play, and they are so time-consuming. I tried doing that, and I failed miserably at it. A very early stage in my film career, I was advised to, do certain things. But I didn't feel comfortable at all. And they were so time consuming and my work suffered. And after 3-4 months, after spending a lot of money and putting myself in that awkward space, I realized कि नहीं यार, वो जो 4 घंटे मैं वहाँ पे दे रहा हूँ, वो 4 घंटे मैं घर पे बैठ के कल की शूट की तैयारी करूँगा तो better होगा.
Yeah.
So I know what suits me. I don't know. Maybe I have an image. Sometimes I feel I have an image of this very serious guy who's playing a very sensitive guy, like you put it.
Yeah.
I also would not want to sort of bracket myself. So I keep sort of experimenting with the kind of work I do, but not beyond what I do in front of the camera. It's always in front of the camera.
Right. The reason I asked this image question is when I saw you in Made in Heaven as Nawab, I was like, oh my God, I don't think anybody else but Vikrant Massey could have done this role.
Thank you.
But that's also a sign of how far we've come, because 10 years back, an actor would never have accepted,
Or nobody would have made something like that.
made something like that. So, because that image would have been like, oh my God, once I play a gay role or whatever it is, or anything that it's going to like, oh my God, it's going to kill my image or whatever.
I think they just took themselves very seriously.
Right.
I don't take myself so seriously.
Right. Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, what has Mirzapur done to your career? We're talking about OTT.
I think it's definitely sort of made me a little more popular. And that's
I don't think little.
Make a little more popular.
Yeah.
I know, but there's still a long way to go. But for me, yeah, quite a lot more popular than what I was. It's really worked for me, and I think it's a cult show. I mean,
Yeah.
I am sick and tired
Too
of
bad you were only in season 1.
only in season, but I'm really happy about that.
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy because I think I gave it my all, and I think that show gave me everything in return. And I think कुछ limited time तक ही वो जो चीजें होती हैं ना उनकी ज़्यादा value होती है.
Right. Yeah. Just leave them wanting enough.
Yeah, just leave them wanting enough. Just at the right. They say now you should always retire. For sportsmen, they definitely say retire at your high. So that was the perfect high for me to sort of retire from Mirzapur.
Is it easier for an actor today to, because pre-OTT, you had to prove your stardom in theatres.
Box office.
Box office meant everything. Whereas now you can be a well-known actor despite the fact that you're not doing things that have a box office value on them. You can do Mirzapur become popular. You can do Made in Heaven become popular. You can do movies also. And the pressure of stardom is not there anymore because there's. Do you think that's a right way to put it?
Partly true. That's partly true, and I definitely see it that way. That might not be the case for a lot of other people, but this definitely is how I see it. There is definitely no pressure when you are working on an OTT platform, whether it's a film or a longer format. But having said that, I think times are changing. I think the audiences want quality.
Right.
And not all box office successes signify quality. I have kind of found my own space. I would rather focus on quality, resonance, and archival value, rather than sort of taking that slippery slope and trying to ring that box office bell. Because these are two completely different worlds from where I see it. And maybe I will have a box office success someday with quality as well. But the consumption patterns more or less remain the same. And the popular films, I think I'm not yet there with regards to comfort.
Right.
People say it's good to step out of your comfort zone. I am, slowly and steadily. But the really popular films today, are not for me. It's not my dish.
Right. When you say really popular films, you're talking about films that are.
I mean, what the staple of Indian audiences are.
Right,
The staple films like action, songs, larger than life, machismo, all these things. They don't come naturally to me. And I definitely don't think that they are bad either. But it's something that I don't need at this point in my career.
Right. Because there's enough happening
There's
otherwise.
enough of it already. But right now, I need to sort of focus on what I need to do, which is be consistent. And how do I be consistent is with the quality of the performances and the stories that I'm a part of.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vikrant. And
Thank you.
I hope the next 10 years kind of.
I hope it does not take me 10 years to find you again.
No, it won't. But I hope the next 10 years take you to places that you really want to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
and
for your
all
time.
the best.
A riser, shirts and trousers.
Holidays nale, adu namma GT Holidays da. South India's #1 travel brand.
Deepavali collection Kodi, Magachiyum Kodi. The Chennai Silks. Let the celebrations begin.